click on the record button and wait for that recording to start before we dive right in. And I believe we are now recording. We always like to record these just in case folks register, and that way, and you can't attend. We know that this isn't a great time for everyone. It might be your lunchtime, it might be too early for you. And this way we can always send you the recording. And even if you've attended, we will always send you the recording as well. Hopefully there's some good tips in here that you might want to listen to, or certainly you're welcome to pass them on to a coworker or another fellow SQL Viewpoint user. Today we're going to talk about our Trusty reports and our flashy client reports. And we're going to touch on both of them. We've only got about 30 minutes to do that, so we can't go real in depth on both of those types of reports, but we're going to give you enough to hopefully spark your interest and maybe help you understand why there are two different reports. You know, everything is an evolution in SQL, and we did start out with our handy host reports, and then over time, you know, as the world progressed and PCs came part of the world, we did have client reports. And we're going to go into some fun facts on both of these reports. I'm Sheryl Quinlan, and I'm the support manager for the SQL and Showcase and now Robot teams here at Help Systems. And joining me today is Jackie.
Hi, Sheryl. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
And Jackie's on the support team for SQL and Showcase and gets to do a lot of hands-on work with both types of reports, but does really have an affinity to the client reports, or that we affectionately call CRO. We're first going to dive in here and take a look at our good old Trusty reports. And these host reports are a lot like my old car in the driveway, and that is actually my car. It's an old Chevy. It's got about 160,000 miles on it. I can fill that. I just last week filled it up, took a daughter to college. Can put a lot of people in there because it's got 7 seats. And at 160,000 miles, I'm really happy it's still running. And that's what our host reports are like. They're very functional. They've been around a long time, and they do offer you quite a bit. Now, do they have all the bells and whistles that perhaps the client report has? No. But do they have a place in your repertoire for building reports? Probably yes. They've got a lot more formatting options than just a view. I'm able to add some spacing in there. I can also do calculations at subtotals, grand totals, conditional calculations, and level break calculations. And we'll take a glance at some of those. Now, this host report still creates a spool file, but in the history of SQL, the spool file has come a long way. Way back when I first started with SQL, we just made a spool file and everybody printed everything. And it was that long ago. Trust me, you were printing on green bar paper back then. But then with the inclusion of eSend and the integration of eSend into SQL, we were able to create PDF, text, and Word documents out of our spool files. And even better, we're able to email those. So once that happened, we saw a new interest again in the host reports. They're really easy to run in batch. And we still need a view because the view is what extracts the data from the files. And the variables that you can use will exist only in those views. But they are pretty handy, and they create some just very straightforward reports. Here's one that's a little bit more involved. We've got a customer address block there that has their number, their name and address, and so on. We got a little spacing around the column headings. We've suppressed some detail, and we've added some calculations. And probably the most interesting calculation here is the one at the bottom that says number of orders. It's not just simply a count of how many lines there are, it's just a count of how many orders per customer. And that's what we're going to take a look at, are a few of these things within the host report. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over viewpoints. So hopefully you're now seeing my viewpoint Explorer screen. And if I wanted to create a really simple report, I could do that very quick down and dirty by just finding my view and saying report. And I'm going to walk us through the wizard very quickly. And there's 4 steps to this wizard. And the first one is really just to ask if we need a title and a footing and page size. Then I get a list of all of the fields from my view, and it just wants me to say, yes, I'd want to include those, or I don't, and is the order correct? Then I have every numeric field from my view here, and I'm being asked if I want a subtotal. I really only want to subtotal the extended price. And then I'm being asked on my 4th and final step, where do I want to see the subtotals? And so I can pick which level I'd like to see totals or grand totals at. I can go ahead and click finished, and it'll think for a moment as it formats the report. And then pretty quickly there, I have a very workable report. I do have to save the report as a separate object. It's a separate object in the view. And right from here, I could display this. And I can either just do a quick display, or I could actually say display the results in PDF. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the use of the host report is probably to email it as PDF. So I would recommend you take a look at what it looks like in the PDF formatting. And it's thinking here for a second, and there it is. And that's how quickly I can get a report. Now I can add all the fancy stuff to this, or I could just take it as it is. And, it's several pages here, many customers with a grand total, and it's very workable. Now the report that I teased you with in the PowerPoint, where I showed you a more involved layout, I did take the liberty of setting that up ahead of time, just so that you didn't have to watch me design that. And also we wanted to save some time on this webinar today to show you more about the client reports. And so I'm just going to jump into this designer and give you a feel for what this could look like. I can add as many lines as I need to each format. I can move fields around. I can suppress the field from reprinting at every line of detail. And what's really fun, what I really like to do, is I can create some calculations. And I've got all kinds of calculations in here. I even have one that's a before record read calculation to initialize or set something to 0. And I have calculations that are done at particular level breaks, as well as just a straight up subtotal type calculation. And that's where the power of the host report can come in, is through the calculations and the additional formatting. Now, there will be times when you need something a little fancier. There's no doubt that sometimes you want the fancy sports car, you want the luxury car with some more features, and that's what client reports are going to do for you. Here's an example of one. We've put our logo in there in the upper left corner on the page. We've changed the formatting and the color on the title just so it jumps out a little bit more. We've added some boxes around the data just to make it, more pleasing. And really fun, we've added some conditional coloring, or what we could also call KPIs, key performance indicators, where we're calling out when, an aged invoice is over 90 days. And we now know which ones are between 60 and 90 and so on. Another great feature of the client reports is the ability to incorporate graphs into the output. This one has the graph, and then it has the data right below it to substantiate those graphs. And something as subtle as this page numbering that says page 1 of 6. Page 1 of whatever your total is actually very hard. It's near impossible to do in the host report. But here in the client report, it is just a simple click. Now, beyond these formatting things, there's a lot more too. The client report can create Excel output. Your host report cannot. You can have variables beyond the variables in the view. And so your calculations in your Crow report or your client report can actually have variables. And this is, I think, my favorite, is that I can insert a summary at any level of the data. And that summary is then dynamic and changes as the data changes. So if I'm doing a report about customers and their orders, if I want at grand total time, or I can show a summary based upon sales region and not have to make that a separate report or hard code calculations to do that. There's section experts and to format every part of the report. There's an awesome keep together feature that maybe you want to keep the subtotal, together with the data. We looked at that page 1 of X, and Jackie's favorite is undo, and that's what she'll show you. Now you still need a view because the view is what extracts the data from the files. And this is our luxury car. And if you're in the north and it's winter and if you've never had a car that has a heated steering wheel, I mean, I tell you, I dream of one. It is an awesome feature. And so now we're going to we are going to allow Jackie to share her screen so that she can show you a little bit more about client reports. So Jackie, you ought to be able to make yourself share your screen now. On the left-hand side under the mute button on that control panel.
Yeah, I clicked on that and nothing's happening.
All right, I'm
okay.
Hopefully I just passed the baton.
Hopefully
Jackie and I are much better at using SQL than we are at GoToWebinar. We'll say that.
Can you see
we
customer aging? Okay, very good. Sorry about that. Okay, so in this demo, first thing I'm going to do is show you the PDF output results of a client report or CRO, and then I'll show you how I got there. So in this first client report or CRO, this is a customer aging report, and we can see right off the bat we have some color and italics in our title. We have that background coloring that Sheryl mentioned, that's a conditional formatting. And we've got a logo up there in the top left-hand corner. And we also have a summary. So this report is grouping by customer and summarizing their total order amount due. So I've opened this client report in Design, and this title, it's a text object, and there's most of the formatting you do in a client report is very easy to accomplish. So I had added this text, and I'm going to simply right click and select format text. And then I've got some options up at the top here. I'm going to click on the font tab, and here's where I had changed it. So I changed it to Arial, I made it bold and italicized, and I chose a color blue. So it's literally that simple. Now I have the same options available for any of my fields, my data fields. So ordno or order number is one of my fields. I do the same thing. I right click, format field, and go to the font tab. And I have those same options available. Now, to get into more of the heated steering wheel fancy, over here we have our bucket field. And this one, since this is an aging report, I wanted to kind of highlight and jump out at me when there's a customer that's reached a certain number of days in their aging. So I'm going to right click on this and go to Format Field again. Now this time I'm going to the Border tab. And the reason is I want it to highlight the background of this field. And if you notice, when you go into formatting in a client report, nearly every option has this little formula box, this X2 with the little pencil. And what that means is whatever this format selection is, if this is highlighted in red, that means there's a formula in the background which determines if that format is going to be used and how. And that sounds kind of complicated, what I just said, but the client report makes it very easy. So let's look at how I set this background coloring up. I clicked on that formula button, and that brings over my formula editor. So the client report gives you a list of several different colors that you could choose from. and it's telling you how you would basically code them or how you would type them out so that the client report understands. And I'm using a very simple if-then statement. So in plain English, if this customer is 91 and over, I want it to be red. If they're 60 to 90 days, then I want it to be yellow. And that's what this little formula does down here. Excuse me. If the field does not have either of these values, then we just want to leave it alone and give it no coloring. So it'll just be the white. And that results in what you see here. So the 91 and over are turning red, so it's going to pop out at me as I'm reviewing this report. And then the yellow is a little more of a caution that they're approaching that 91, but they're at 60 to 90. Okay, now the other item we have here is we have this box. Let me go back to my results and show you the box again. This little drawing object here. And I use that to just separate out my groups. That again is under the insert menu, and it's insert box, and you get this little pencil. So you could click and drag to draw your box. And then once your box is drawn, you can right click on it and go to format box if you want to get super fancy. And in this one, I put a drop shadow on there. So that's why it looks like it's kind of three-dimensional. And we know in this report, we also have a summary. Now, one of the really nice things, as Sheryl referred to, is this insert summary. And it's nice because it walks you through very simplistically how to make your summary, and it will position it on the report for you. So in this case, we had totaled the revenue. So I'm going to choose my revenue field, and then it gives you a large amount of different calculations that you can choose from. I had chosen sum, and then it basically is asking you where you would like to position it. So we could put it at the grand total line, or I had chosen to put it at the end of each group. I'm going to cancel that since it's already on the report, but that's how that summary looks. And we also have our Help Systems logo. And that's also easy. You simply select Insert Picture and then navigate to where your picture is located. Click Open and it will put it on the report for you. So that's one example of a client report. I'm going to close this one and we'll switch over to the second client report. Let me open that guy. I think I chose design. Yep. So for this one is separating out our customer credit limit by region. And we've got a chart and then the supporting data underneath for each region as you page through the report. So here's that same report in design mode. So to insert a chart, it's under the famous insert menu again. Insert chart. And once I get it on my report, I'm ready to work with it or format it. And just so you know, this graphic you see here, this is not how your chart's going to look. It's just a sample. So I've got my chart positioned, and I'm going to right click and I can choose Chart Expert. And the client report has a very robust chart feature. It has probably every chart type you could ever think of, whether or not you want it to be vertical, horizontal, And then all of these additional options up at the top, your data, your access, and a couple other options there. And even further, if you want to dig even deeper into the formatting ability of a chart, is I can click on my actual series or my bar. I can right click. Now I've got the chart options here, which is similar to the prior chart options, but I could even go ahead and format my series. I could change the border on it, make it a pattern, a picture if you like. So there's a lot of things you can do with the chart feature of a client report. And this one also has that sequential page numbering. So it's down here, page N of M. And in the client report, this is super easy to do. It's considered a special field, which is on the left here. And it's this one here, page N of M. And you have all these other choices as well. And you simply single click on it and drag it over to where you want. And then it will show that sequential page numbering. Now, most people know about the magic eraser product that's out there, and that's what I call my favorite feature of the Crow, which is the undo button. And it's nice because sometimes if you're really focusing in on a report, you might be moving things around. In this case, I just moved my spacing. I added, now I've got 2 page numberings in here, and I've got a chart that I really don't need. I left those there intentionally to show you the undo. The undo is the back arrow right here. And I can single click on it and it'll of course undo the most recent action. But the really nice thing is there's a drop down arrow next to it. And if you click there, you see the last actions that you've done. And I can actually highlight those. I'm not clicking, I'm just dragging. And it reverts back the last 6 actions or more that I have done. And I can tell you that sometimes when you're really working on a report and you're moving small things around, it's easy to forget what you moved and what you didn't, or what caused it to look messy. So that's my favorite, is the undo. So that's the client reports and some of the really neat features we have for it.
Well, thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
I'm just switching back. There we go. So we just wanted to give you a flavor of these 2 reports. There's, of course, a lot more that you can dive into. If you didn't realize, our client report is based on crystal reports. So if you have any experience there, it'll become very second nature to working on those client reports. I should have also mentioned that the client report does take a little bit extra license. It's nominal, but it is by user, and that's something that your sales team could help you with if you go to create one and you get a message. What we find though is a lot of folks have it and are underutilizing it. So we hope that this prompts you to look at those client reports, especially if that's a license that you have. Now, we're going to throw it out here, whether or not you have any questions. And that would be on your webinar. There's a question area, and you could just shoot out any questions to us. The host reports everybody gets, and that's just part of the base of SQL and Viewpoint. And while we wait to see if there's any questions at all, I'm going to go ahead and just move forward and say, just to remind everyone, if you're looking for more training, if you want a little bit more in depth on the reports, we do have SQL education courses. We have a couple classes coming up where it's a great way if you had 1 or 2 people from your company that needed some training, you could join a group class. And we have intermediate next week, and then mid-September we have our basic class. If you've got a larger group to train, we're always happy to have a separate class. And we do have a question here. And Jackie, this is probably maybe best for you to answer about sub-report use in client reports. Now, sub-reports get a little bit complicated, part of
Right.
Crystal.
I don't have any examples right off the bat. And using a sub-report in the client report is slightly different than what you would expect in Crystal. But I could definitely probably find an example and give you a better answer.
So the answer is yes, they can be done, right?
Yes.
But we just don't have an example like today, but
Yeah.
we'd be happy to get you one. And so we can always follow up with you after the session, and because we'll get a copy of all of these questions. I am having just the hardest time seeing these. How do you tell if you have Crystal report license? That's pretty easy. If you go to design a Crow report, when you right click on your view object and you click new, if client report is grayed out, it's unavailable to you. If it's there, you'll be able to design your reports. And so if it is grayed out, we're happy to give you some more information on that. And someone is looking for our PowerPoint. We can take that offline with you. We're happy to share that along with the recording. And I think, Jackie, have I gotten all the questions? Oh, there's one here.
One. Yep.
What does that one?
What is required for a user to run a Crow from a script written to either email them a PDF or place the PDF on a map drive? Our users who are not authorized to design reports will not have Crystal installed on their systems.
Okay, and that's the beautiful part about Crow, right, Jackie, is you really just need a few really good folks to design, and then to run them, people can run them all day long without having Crystal or installed. They would have to have Viewpoint installed.
Right.
And we can take it to PDF output, and we have the answer is a little bit complicated because it might depend on what version of the software you have, but the best answer there is with our newest version of the software, it is so super easy to create a PDF from the Crow report, right, Jackie?
Yes, it is, very much so.
Yeah, we have a new command, and it makes it so easy. And it actually, you could set it up in a script if you just wanted them to click on the script, and then the PDF would be created. It could be a scheduled job for them so that it just ends up there. But that's something maybe we should take as through the support team to help you with your specific instance. All right, well, we're almost at the bottom of the hour. Did any more questions come in?
I don't think so.
All righty. Great. Well, we want to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us, and we encourage you to reach out to the support team at any time with questions. There's a lot of ways to reach us. You can send us an email. You could go out to the portal at community.helpsystems.com, create a case, or chat with us from there. Though we still take telephone calls, the good old-fashioned way of reaching us. And if you need to email Jackie or me, our email addresses are right there, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate your time and your continued support and use of Viewpoint.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.